Hey, it's Debbie Potts, and I wanted to dive into my part two of this rabbit hole about do we have low carbohydrate availability or is it really low energy availability? And maybe it's tied to we're trying to lose weight, we're trying to speed up our metabolism by doing the wrong things. When we are aging, we are trying to not gain weight by exercising more, and typically people do more cardio, and instead we actually want to do more strength training. And then nutritionally, we tend to eat less and do more fasting. Well, that backfires. So we want to get rid of this message. We want to look at how much do we really need in our bloodstream at once of glucose. How much protein do you need? I've talked about a lot lately. I love to go by Dr. Gabrielle Lyons' info of 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight, getting more around 40 grams per meal to 50 grams and spreading that out in 3 meals, getting additional sources of essential amino acids, vis body aminos by Body Health or Keon Aminos to get that full essential amino acid profile. So last episode, part one, I dove into this rabbit hole of how much glucose is required in the body at rest, because we hear about that we female athletes might perform better and improve fat oxidation if we eat some carbohydrates beforehand. I wanted to learn why. How does that work? And how much is enough? So if I put a little bit of heavy cream in my coffee and maybe some Laird's coffee creamer that has some coconut sugar in it as a sweetener, is that enough? Because I don't want to eat a lot before I work out, and I feel better just having a little bit of something in my coffee when I work out in the morning. Afternoon workouts, I can time my meal to be 2 to 3 hours, actually 3 hours. I can't swim at lunchtime. At noon, 11:45, I go swimming. So I need to eat about 8 a.m., 9 a.m. All right. How much glucose is required at once? The body is amazing. Normal blood glucose in a healthy person range 70 100. Ideally, we stay fasted glucose on your blood chemistry panel. We like in FDN practitioner world, we like to say 70 to 90 when you're fasted. After eating, your blood glucose rise. I've learned from looking at levels and NutriSense and other functional medicine doctors. They had a blog somewhere on what everyone decided on. It was really not going over 130 to 120 to 130, but this article says below 140. So when you eat a meal, your glucose and your blood glucose levels temporarily rise no more than, say, 120, 130, and then they should come back down 70 to 90. Now, how much glucose do we need is 4 to 5 grams of glucose circulating in the bloodstream at any given time. That is equivalent to 1 teaspoon of sugar in total. To match the 4 to 5 grams of glucose the average adult has circulating in their bloodstream at any given time, I want to identify what does that equal to. So just to get you an idea of how little 1 teaspoon of sugar, 4 to 5 grams of glucose, 1 gram of carbohydrate provides 1 gram of glucose after digestion. Depending on the type of carbohydrate, you need about 4 to 5 grams of carbohydrate to replenish or match the glucose level in the bloodstream. So common carbohydrate sources in standard American diet sources, 4 to 5 grams is what I reviewed last episode. 1 teaspoon of sugar, 4 to 5 grams. Table sugars, 1 teaspoon of sugar is 4 to 5 grams. 1 teaspoon of honey, glucose and fructose. Banana, 1/10 of a medium banana gives 4 to 5 grams carbohydrates. White bread is 1/6 of a slice. Apple, 1/8 of an apple. Orange juice is 1 sip. So the small amount of 4 to 5 grams of glucose we need circulating in the body, in the bloodstream at all time, replenishes from sources above, as well as internal sources, as what you've heard before, gluconeogenesis. This is glucose production by the liver and glycogen broken down into glucose. So gluconeogenesis, remember, is glucose. Neo means new, and genesis, creation. These sources provide the body with the necessary fuel to maintain blood glucose levels, support brain function, ensure overall metabolic stability. Maintaining stable blood glucose levels is essential, and even small amounts of dietary carbohydrates, as 1 teaspoon of sugar or honey, can impact those glucose levels before or during exercise. But critical amount of glucose continuously replenished through dietary carbohydrates, production of glucose by the liver, and glycogen breakdown in the liver muscles, maintaining glucose levels is essential overall metabolic stability. We know that protein and fat can be converted, and lactate can be converted into fuel to get the glucose up. So 4 to 5 grams of glucose, so the average adult needs circulating in the bloodstream at any given time, is very easy to get. We don't need many carbohydrates, 1 teaspoon. So if we look at specifically the aging active female that needs to slightly increase blood glucose levels before exercise, was my question. Why do we need to increase our glucose in our blood and to enhance fat oxidation? But how much do we need? Do we really need 40, 50 grams of carbohydrates, or is it the 20 grams before? And where should you get that from? Or is it just enough just to have a little bit? And this is what I was curious about in research. And I find this type of experiment is a very individual experiment. It's more of a N equals 1. So just enough glucose is needed to prevent the body going into a stressed, glucose depleted state. Based on some interviews that Stacy Sims was talking about this, I wanted to know, for female athletes, to optimize our performance, if our goal is to nail that workout, to work hard, if I'm doing a high heart rate workout, do I need to have a little glucose beforehand? Probably, but how much glucose do I need if I'm doing a zone 1-2 workout? That's where I'm burning high amounts of fat based on my metabolism tests that I went over before. So I want to understand. I don't disagree. I'm just saying I always like to understand why. What is the mechanism of action? Maybe some people are not as good at metabolizing fat as others in resting and exercise various intensities. So we can dive into what small amounts of carbs may help fat oxidation in aging females and why. How? What is the mechanism of action once again? So what I learned was, again, keep open mind. I'm not saying this is 100% right. I'm just trying to put this together. We have reduced glycogen stores and metabolic shifts with age. As women age, hormonal changes, as we know, lower estrogen and progesterone during peri and postmenopause can reduce the body's efficiency of accessing stored glycogen and fat. Estrogen helps promote fat oxidation. So if we have less estrogen as we near that one day in time that we call menopause, our body may rely more on carbohydrates. Well, is that how? I don't know. We don't want it to. We want to rely on fat metabolism. So how do we improve that? So consuming a small amount of carbohydrates, this is where I'm questioning. It says 15 to 30 grams before exercise can help spare muscle glycogen, maintain blood glucose levels, and prevent early fatigue. This ensures that the body has enough immediate energy to support the moderate intensity exercise, allowing fat oxidation to kick in once the workout progresses. So maybe just 15 grams of carbohydrate, it says half a bar, or maybe we look at how many grams of carbs are in heavy cream in my coffee, or a Laird's, say, coconut creamer. What is enough? Do I need to add a little something? I wonder this. Glucose for performance and metabolic flexibility. The body requires, they say, a balance of glucose and fat for fuel. And I know that as metabolism testing, we want to be looking at our 5 zones Zone 1 and zone 5, that's your peak, or zone 1 and 2, that's your peak fat burning. As we go up to the top end of zone 5 towards your max, that's going to be different fuel sources as we go higher intensities. During higher intensities or longer workouts, the fuel sources will switch. Now, if your blood glucose levels are too low, the body prioritizes glucose for critical functions as brain activity, and you may struggle to efficiently tap into fat stores. Well, what if we had a ketone shot that would feed the brain the energy it needs? It can use ketones. How would the blood glucose levels get too low if you're not eating any carbohydrates? Your body always maintains that 1 teaspoon of sugar, equivalent of 1 teaspoon of sugar in your bloodstream at all times. So do we need to improve our metabolic flexibility first? Or how do we improve burning fat? So it says by consuming small controlled amount of carbs before exercise, females during this peri-postmenopause can stabilize their blood glucose level. This ensures that the body has sufficient energy for the initial stages of exercise. This promotes metabolic flexibility, allowing the body to gradually transition to burning fat as the exercise intensity moderates. Perhaps I can see this when I do metabolism testing, when I have someone hooked up to the oxygen carbon dioxide analyzer when they're exercising. As we change the intensity, what happens? Maybe they start burning carbohydrates and then they start to burn fat, and then we increase intensity and they switch again. So this is something what we want to individualize. Personalization, again, ideally testing with the metabolism test in a lab, or find someone with PNOE, P-N-O-E, look it up, or come see me in Del Mar, Solana Beach area. So next, it talks about glucose for performance and metabolic flexibility. The body requires that balance, right? So we're talking about this metabolic flexibility, but how do we improve that? By training and fueling, and then just the performance, the glucose for performance, but we want to look at what intensity. So remember, we talked about the sample resting metabolism test, we get PNOE, and then this exercise test. We're looking at how is your metabolism and how well are you burning fat is your marker for fat burning efficiency. So we want to test and not guess what is your fuel source and what are your training zones and how do you improve that training zone. So your zone 2 is say 141 to 60, 166, instead of a lot of people I test their zone 2 is 100, 110, and they need to really boost that up. Now, stress, as you know, is my story, chronic stress impacts all efforts. So if we're not eating enough, or if our body feels like it's stress, and I pulled up all these other articles, we can talk about that. We talk about kisspeptin hormone and turning everything on, turning off. We've got lots of research articles, low carb availability, and looking at that research. So I'll put all these links in the show notes. What I'm talking about, is there low carb availability of having too low decreased muscle stores that decreases our endurance performance, increases our injury risk, decreases our training response, judgment. Is this happening because we're not eating enough carbohydrates, or are we creating too much stress in our body, or if we're not exercising enough? So it's low carb availability on athletes that are females. And I think it's touchy that we need to have in some carbs around that higher intensity workouts. So low blood glucose levels during exercise can trigger the hormone cortisol. Stress hormone cortisol promotes the breakdown of muscle tissue to create glucose if there's not enough on board. This can hinder fat oxidation and encourage fat storage around the abdominal area usually. So a small carbohydrate boost before exercise can help avoid the stress response, maintaining energy balance without excessively elevating blood glucose. So this makes sense to me. I don't want to break down my muscle. Yes, I don't need carbohydrates. They are not essential. But if I am trying to do a high-end workout up here in these higher zones to improve my VO2 max, fat burning efficiency, cellular health, increase fatigue threshold, increase VO2 max here, my mitochondria, then I might want to get my heart rate up, those upper ends. This is a sample report, but for me, it's 160, 170. I may be able to hit those numbers if I fuel correctly. So a small carbohydrate boost as 10 to 15 grams, maybe that's a half of a bar or a full bar, just finding something that's easy to digest so it won't give you stomach problems when you're trying to work out, and avoid gluten, grains, legumes. So for me, it's if it's having a bar is easy, or grabbing something in my coffee. And I'm not into sweetness. So for me, it's just having cream with that coconut sugar that's in the Laird's pumpkin spice I've been doing lately. I don't know. What do you like? As Fuels has the supplement for zone 4 and zone 5 workout. That's another idea. So here we go. What's the right amount? I think this is where we need to tweak and adjust and experiment. But I think it's important comment that Stacy Sims talks about is to support the initial energy. So having this 15 grams of carbs might be enough to support the initial energy of what you need at the start of your workout without blunting fat oxidation. This amount is small enough to prevent a significant insulin spike. So we don't want to have that insulin spike, which would hinder fat metabolism, but not large enough. So if you learn what I've taken in IQ Dan Plu's program, he says don't have any carbohydrates beforehand because that will blunt and cause insulin spike and hinder fat metabolism. But Stacey Sims is saying, no, females, we're different. We need, say, 15 grams to support the beginning of your workout. Now, I would look at your metabolism test, and if we could, I can't share the screen of my test, but if you can look at what people burn when we test them, that'd be interesting to see. Do you need a little carbohydrate just to start your workout? And I don't know how long that is. Is that the first 10 minutes of the workout? Maybe that's why I kind of feel it takes me 20 minutes to warm up, but maybe having something. So instead of being fasted, I think having a little something easy to digest. Now, her suggestions are often oatmeal, piece of toast, but that's, I don't do gluten, wheat, and oatmeal. That also, as I said, if you are a carb addict or have foods that make you just want to eat forever, that's another reason, different category of conversation, different topic, that certain foods will set you off for a binge fast. Or a carb addict person, as I said before, it's having an alcoholic drink for someone that's a recovering alcoholic, and that will set them into a binge. It's same for people that are carb addicts. Having a little bit of carbs might help performance, but you need to choose the right kind that are not going to be problematic for you in the long run and cause your blood sugar to go up too high. So finding what food provides immediate energy without that large blood sugar spike, consuming the carbohydrate 15 minutes beforehand, that's just say 15 grams of carbs 15 minutes beforehand, to ensure that blood glucose levels are slightly elevated before the workout in the early phases. And you could use a glucose monitor, would be a great experiment, as well as doing my Pinoy metabolism testing. If we do a test with you not eating any carbs, if that's normal for you, and then do another test with you eating what food would be 15 grams of carbs, even 10 grams. So again, test and not guess what works best for you as a unique individual, knowing that these recommendations are designed for the female high-performing athlete that's trying to do a hard workout. When we are doing this zone 1, 2 workout, well, you're trying to burn fat. So I don't know. Do you need to find that out? Do I need something on a zone 1, 2 workout? Maybe having a little something in my coffee will help me with my fat metabolism. Using a lumen is also a great tool to use a lumen beforehand, which we have a discount code, Coach Debbie Potts, if you want to try that. So while aging females do not need to drastically increase blood glucose levels before workout to burn fat, a small amount of carbohydrates, as 15 grams, can help stabilize glucose levels and provide intermediate energy source. This ensures that the body can access fat storage more efficiently as the workout progresses, and improving overall fat oxidation and preventing the stress response that could hinder fat metabolism. That's another concept that makes sense to me, because if we go back to the cortisol increasing from not having enough fuel on board, will backfire because your body thinks it's under stress. And then what happens when you're stressed? You're going to be chronic stress mode. You raise cortisol, your body responds so you can quickly run from that threat. And so your blood glucose levels elevates. So again, we need to look at, what are you doing? What's your workout schedule typically this week for the month ahead? Let's work on matching your fueling with your intensity. It could be simple as tweaking your pre-workout coffee drink or having half of a bar. It doesn't need to be a big meal. As we said, it's 15 grams of carbohydrates. What does that look like? I should look at my Laird's coffee creamer and see what's in there. You can do, there's different products. Now, I just want to rabbit hole here, but the creamer I've been using does have a little bit glucose or sugar in it. So there's a mocha that's really good, but ooh, yeah, this one I put in hot water is really good. So peppermint mocha, if you want a peppermint mocha, how many carbs are in it? So I've got 1 teaspoon. Well, that's not much. Oh, 8 grams. So here we go. If you do 1 teaspoon, so maybe do 2 teaspoons of this peppermint mocha, and the ingredients are organic coconut sugar and peppermint oil, very clean coconut milk powder. That could be something, if you like coffee in the morning pre-workout, get a little caffeine, that you're having a little bit of glucose. So maybe that works. That's what I've been doing. Okay, so Dr. Stacy Sims' research also was sharing in articles that we know women's metabolism is different from men's, how we use glucose and fat during exercise. This is what she talks about, but I always want to go a lot deeper than, okay, yes, but explain to me how. And she never has time to do that on a podcast. Most people are not as curious as myself. So that's what I'm doing here for you. If you want to geek out, her research on fat metabolism in females, what I looked up, Google, estrogen, progesterone, hormones. We know elevated estrogen during your cycle might change your fat oxidation levels. Carbohydrates might be increased with progesterone, but then we're more insulin resistant. So it's really looking at your hormones during your cycle. If you're having a regular cycle, you might be reliant more on fat fuel certain times of the month, and then carbohydrates. It depends on your workouts and matching them with your hormone cycle. So when glucose stores are used, they need specific strategies to optimize fat metabolism. What does that mean? I think we need to dive into your workout schedule more. So other thing that came up with pre-workout fueling, again, 15 grams, moderate to high intensity workouts. So again, that 15 grams, moderate to high intensity, to me, that means this zone 3 we want to avoid. We want to just do intervals. Zone 1 to zone 5 are your sprint interval trainings that you have to get to 188, 190 for this person. That's really high. So this example, they're not going to get up there until maybe the end of their workout. They do good warm up and then they do sprints. So you got to have that fuel on board to go up there. I get that. Now, lower intensity sessions, fat burning is that zone 1, 2. You can eat lighter meal or fasted training if tolerated. She would never say that though. So I think what I hear Stacey Sims talk about, this fueling recommendation are for when you're doing a more intense workout. Lower intensity is zone 1, 2. You might just have a meal or time it, as I do pre-swim workout, which is usually harder. I can't eat right before swimming, so I have to time what I eat and when to 3 hours beforehand. But we want to encourage the body to tap into fat stores, right? We have a lot more fat stores available than carbohydrates, say 20,000 to or 40,000 to 60,000 more versus 2,000 calories of carbohydrates. Now, Stacy Sims is against fasted training women because the impact on your hormones and stress, as we talked about the kisspeptin hormone before. Occasionally, fasted low intensity training can improve fat metabolism, but she does not recommend that, I don't think at all. Stacy Sims, fasted training is usually not something you'll never hear her say. And the follicular phase, if you are doing it, maybe the week 2 of your cycle, when hormone levels better support recovery of fat oxidation. Now, protein and fat timing, prioritizing protein, we know that. Post-workout, 45 minutes to avoid muscle breakdown, improve recovery, which indirectly enhances fat metabolism over time. For those that are doing fat burning, healthy fats and protein before low intensity may help the body rely on fat stores. Again, it depends on you. Also found this is Chat GPT, so it's not 100% accurate, but aligning training and nutrition phases of the cycle to optimize fat burning. Estrogen higher the first half of your cycle, then it's progesterone's higher last half. Women can focus on strength, higher intensity workouts, and use carbs more effectively in the first half. During luteal phases, the body's primed to burn fat. Lower intensity, steady state exercise can help fat metabolism. And then chronic high intensity exercise, as we know, can elevate cortisol, which promotes fat storage around the abdominal. Women balance their training with adequate recovery and stress. So usually I talk to my clients to get a deload week that 4th week. So the week before you start your cycle, you want to do that 50% volume, but keep the intensity. Now, practical tips. Let's go over pre-workout. If it's a harder workout, maybe experiment with that 15, 20 grams of carbohydrates to prevent glucose depletion and help in fat burning. During the workout, longer, you might need something. Fuel source, I like zone 2 from S Fuels. Steady state cardio is more for fun. It's not required. Post-workout, mix of protein, say 40 grams. If you're older, you need not 20 grams doesn't work because remember the anabolic resistance we've talked about. So we want 40 grams to 50 grams post-workout. We have more anabolic resistance and we need to get that fuel in to repair muscles, the glycogen to replace in the muscles. So we can work out hard next time. Now, overall nutrition, I talk about healthy fats, good focus on protein, and improve fat burning. And then we want to look at timing with your cycle. And if you're perimenopausal, might be a little more different schedules. We might not have a cycle every 28, 30 days. So we want to look at what's going on in your hormones. Now, ladies, we want pre-workout or not. Low circulating glucose levels. We want to have 4 to 5 grams of glucose bloodstream all time, just to give you a summary. That's 1 teaspoon of sugar. But this small amount is crucial for immediate energy needs. During high demands of organs like the brain, glucose reserve is limited and quickly depleted during high intensity exercise. Glycogen and glucose depletion during exercise. High intensities, the body prefers glucose as quick, easily accessible source of energy when you are at high intensities. Remember, zone 2 is your fat burning. So if you're doing zone 4 and 5, you are not burning fat, but it does improve your mitochondria and VO2 max. The body uses glucose from the bloodstream and glycogen, stored glucose from the muscles and liver to fuel these activities. Without adequate supply of glucose, the body may not perform optimally and could break down muscle tissue or struggle to access fat efficiently for fuel, leading to fatigue and reduced performance. We want to support metabolism of our fat. We want metabolic flexibility. We're using both glucose and fat as fuel sources at different intensities. Accessing fat for energy takes longer time. So that's another good point. By having a small amount of carbohydrates pre-workout, you may provide energy sources, immediate source of glucose, because it takes a little longer to walk out to the freezer versus the fridge. So if you have to go to the garage to get that fuel, it takes a little longer. That's perhaps why we just need a tiny bit, but 1 teaspoon of sugar, do you need 15, 30 grams? I think that's a lot. So I have to say, start with 10 grams. See how you feel. Now, why they say helps preserve limited glucose circulating in the bloodstream. Prevents rapid drop in blood sugar levels during initial stages of exercise, which is when the body is still warming up and adjusting to the intensity. I think this depends though, because when I test people, some people are just better at burning fat right away. This ensures that muscle glycogen glucose storage is spared, so you have a buffer of energy as a workout progresses, allowing smoother transition to fat burning once the body settles into steady state, right? So it makes sense. Now, again, everyone's going to be different. How can we enhance fat metabolism? If your glucose needs are met initially with a small carbohydrate intake, your body can avoid those stress signals like the release of cortisol that would otherwise trigger the breakdown of muscle tissue for energy. I don't think most of us can spare muscle. We don't want to lose muscle. We're working hard to fight to gain it. So when glucose is available in the early phases of exercise, the body can shift towards fat metabolism more efficiently after the first 20, 30 minutes of the workout when aerobic fat burning systems are starting to dominate. That is maybe why you feel a little sluggish at first. Then you can feel that just everything feels easier when you start to shift into fat metabolism. Preventing over-reliance of glycogen. By taking small amount of carbs, you're preventing excessive reliance on stored glycogen form, start of your workout. Glycogen stores are limited, and once they're depleted, performance can suffer significantly. Again, if you're trying to get results, improve the aging process, even if you're not training for a race, we want to work on getting good performance gains. So having a small glucose boost can help a gradual depletion of glycogen, supporting energy availability over the course of the workout and enhance better fat oxidation as you continue. Whoops, I just hit my microphone. Tomorrow we're doing Vespa. So if you've heard of Vespa, we're going to be going into how that would work tomorrow. Okay, so Vespa, transform your fueling with Vespa. This might be another option for you, and we'll talk about how this works to unlock your performance potential. Okay, so connection between blood glucose levels and pre-workout. Now, we just went over this. Since the body only has 45 grams of glucose circulating at rest, intense exercise can quickly draw down the supply. Without sufficient glucose, the body will prioritize keeping blood glucose sugars stable, potentially limiting your ability to sustain high level of performance. So the 15 grams of pre-workout carbs as 1 to 2 tablespoons of honey or a small banana are just enough glucose to support this early energy demand without spiking blood sugar excessively. All right, good point, right? Consuming a small amount of carbohydrate can help maintain blood glucose stability. So then the body can transition from burning glucose to burning fat as the workout progresses. Without this, the body may struggle to access fat efficiently or resort to breaking down protein, which we don't want to have happen, to produce glucose, which is not ideal for metabolism or performance. So, summary, 15 grams, might want to start with that pre-workout, ensures that the body has initial source of glucose available during high energy demand at the start of exercise, preserving limited blood glucose levels. That's just 4 to 5 grams, allowing for a smoother transition to fat metabolism later in the workout. Strategy optimizes energy use, prevents early fatigue, and enhances the body's ability to burn fat during longer and more intense workouts. So learn more on the YouTube channel. There's lots of videos, and we'll go into Peter Dafty and I will talk about how Vespa can help this solution here, boost endurance, performance, longevity. Because Vespa helps your body unlock your potential, help metabolic catalysts to jumpstart and support your foundational fueling of body fat. It supports and complements any fueling strategy from carbs, sugars to ketones in different forms. Get more out of your current workout fueling program and more. So we'll learn about Vespa. Previous, got like 4 videos with Peter already, but this is a great conversation to go along with what we're talking about today. So you can get a discount with our coach, Debbie Potts, and use that on the code to order Vespa, which I just had at our podcast party at my house. So that's what I've got today. I'll put the links in the show notes if you want to go to Stacy Sims' articles. Great resources here. I've got 3 of them. I think I will finish though. And this one about intermittent fasting was back in 2001. But just to go over what we talked about, kisspeptin is a neuropeptide responsible for sex hormones, endocrine reproductive function, plays a role of healthy glucose levels. We're more sensitive for females than men. So when it gets perturbed, our hormones aren't produced and released the way we need them to be. If you're doing too much fasting, too much low carb, you may disrupt the production of kisspeptin hormone. When the body perceives we have deficiency in nutrients, and I don't know if it's carbohydrates, because that could be debated in other camps, but if you don't have enough calories, I would say that's more the problem. I don't know if we have too low carbohydrates, but marked reduction in kisspeptin. And I eat carbs. I'm not no carbs. So don't think I'm anti-carbs. I'm not, but I'm not strict carnivore either. I know we need a protein. I'm just thinking that everyone has different opinions on this topic. We have marked reduction in kisspeptin stimulation, which not only increases our appetite, reduces our sensitivity to insulin. So we already are getting insulin sensitive as we are aging and from chronic stress and that kisspeptin. So that's interesting layers we talk about here. Exercise stress on top of stress of daily life. And then we have these internal sources of chronic stress, important fuel source we're looking at. Stress hormones like cortisol rise even higher as you keep increasing your stress. That chronic stress keeps you in sympathetic dominance, sympathetic drive, and reduces your ability to relax. This is why I have my clients test heart rate variability, low frequency and the high frequency, because that's measuring your parasympathetic to sympathetic. Now, your thyroid activity could be depressed, which means your menstrual cycle is going to be altered and your body starts storing belly fat. So if you are exercising a lot and not eating enough for your volume of exercise and your busyness and activity, you might have low energy availability. If you're not eating enough, you could be disrupting this hormone kisspeptin and have this impact on your hormones. Domino effect. The body works together. One thing's impacted, then you have stress hormones from cortisol. Then you have disrupted menstrual cycles, higher anxiety, more stress, and that's going to impact your performance, and you're going to gain weight. This is what happened to me 10 years ago. The ketogenic diet, I don't think is a problem of, see, this is what I would question. Increased mental focus on keto diet for men, increased parasympathetic state, so they're more relaxed. But women, she finds, Stacy Sims says, keto kicks up our sympathetic fight or flight, so they're more anxious, more prone to being depressed, and can't sleep well. And I don't know if that's keto or just not eating enough and getting the wrong nutrient density. Sometimes females feel good the first 3 months, but after a while, you start to feel the impacts. The long-term effect for female athletes is endocrine dysfunction, increased abdominal fat, more depression, and more weight gain. So you can read this article. I think it's an important thing that athlete or non-athlete, that we need to eat enough calories and get nutrient quality. So she talks about, getting that workout in, but having fun. So there you go. Here's the links. There's articles Stacy Sims referred to, hypothalamic kisspeptin neurons. on here, and then I'll put this link. Other article that was on Kisspeptin, she was talking about also related to your genetics. This was a great chart, male versus female. So we can dive into this one. I'll do this on my own so I don't bore you, but this is another great article to look at. Is there low energy availability, low carb? So I think I like to look at my genetics. I'm more carb sensitive if you look at all my genetic reports, but look at that. And then we have Dr. Mickey has a great podcast herself, and she did I found this one she did a while ago on Nourish, Balance, Thrive with these guys, and I think that's a good topic, as well as carb periodization, glycogen. So there's a lot to dive into. So looking at what intensity you're working at, matching your fueling with your training, making sure you're hitting your protein goals, doing metabolism tests so you know when you need to fuel for that workout. If you're trying to do sprint training, you need to fuel beforehand, not do it fasted, because then you're probably not even getting your heart rate up that high. And if you are doing too much training, you cause too much stress, possibly. And then we want to make sure you're getting enough calories as we do your resting metabolism test. We look and find your macros. How are you burning fat, carbs at rest? How many calories do you really need a day? And then we can figure out your intensity and workout. So maybe you need to add a little something as a creamer with a little coconut sugar in your coffee just to get, maybe you do 2 teaspoons at 16 grams. And then there's another option. We'll talk to Peter tomorrow about Vespa and how it can help. So let me know what questions you have. Again, this is just more a discussion. I'm not giving so much my opinion, but just curiosity of how much is too much, how much is too little, what is the Goldilocks effect for you? So head to my blog, Debbie Potts, to find more information. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk next time.